things are you'll see on all chop saw tables or miter saw tables, the no hand mark, and there'll be a line. Typically this is within 8 inches of the blade, so any piece of material smaller than 8 inches or less, you wouldn't want to cut, because if the saw were to kick or pull the piece sideways or anything, you have a high risk of pulling your fingers into the cutting area. So nothing less than 8 inches when cutting. A few other things: after you cut, if the saw does not have an automatic brake system, which most new ones do, but in case you're using an older one it doesn't, don't reach in and grab your material until that blade has completely stopped. Another thing is, when using the miter saw, there'll be warnings right on top. Make sure you read those and understand those, such as wear eye protection, keep hands out of the path of the blade, so of course nothing within this 8-inch distance of each side of the blade. Another thing is, don't ever try and cut like this. Just always reposition yourself so you're on this side of the table when cutting, if you're left-handed, and never reach around the saw as well, especially right after cutting. So those are about the basic guidelines you want to follow. Another thing is never freehand cut. So if you are trying to cut, say, a small piece of wood or even a larger piece of wood, make sure that you have your hand gripped firmly and holding the piece of material or the piece of wood up against the fence, and not with the material kind of slidden out away from the fence. The reason for this is that you can pull the piece back in and can end up causing you to lose grip or lose your balance a little bit and pulling your hands into the saw. And never leave the piece like this and just try cutting, make an attempt to cut, because again, that force can pull the piece up and then end up jamming the saw and can cause lots of other issues. So make sure you always have a firm grip on the piece up against the fence, and as well as flat on the table. So as you begin your cut, of course, make sure that the guard is working properly, not stuck in the upright position. It's always good to just guide the saw down, make sure you're perfectly where you need to be on your line, and then you can make the cut. Some saws will have an extra handle or lever as well to activate the guard, so you have to also sometimes press that as well as pull the trigger at the same time, so to lift the guard and as you go down making your cut. Whereas this one goes down with the saw as you just push down like that, you can see. But there is a button right on the inside by the trigger, so the trigger is locked until you push that button in and then pull. For larger pieces, you're going to want to make sure that the sliding rails are not locked. So you want to loosen that, and as you cut a bigger piece, you start towards the front and work your way back, instead of starting at the back and trying to pull the saw back towards you. You should never have to force the saw down. If you are finding that you have to force the saw down, immediately locate your supervisor and ask them to change the blade, or do so yourself in a safe manner, of course, making sure the saw is unplugged before doing so. And that's how you use a chop saw.